Hi, good afternoon, Michael. Nice to see you again after Saturday's seminar. Because the pictures and sound was not perfect, our screen was not clear enough. I think it'll be great if you'll go through it with us again, and then some of the delegates can go through it with you. Nice to hear all about it again.
How's it, Mike? Nice to catch up Monday. And yes, certainly the graphics are quite important, and they weren't 100% clear. So I did lose a little bit of the impact of, I think, of what we were trying to convey, and not to bore anyone, but we can certainly run through it sort of very quickly. And yeah, there we have it. Just in terms of the growing popularity of the EMA offering, as we see it, I think the best way to convey it is to just sort of run through our little portfolio, which at the moment is only 5 buildings strong. We recently lost a building where the owners didn't see the benefits in retaining our services. I think, somewhat penny wise and pound foolish, but nevertheless, they're sort of prerogative. But yeah, I think we just sort of run through this very quickly, and then let members and our audience reach their own conclusions as to the benefits of the EMA offering. I'm going to assume, just for simplicity, that our audience is cognizant of what the requirements are to appoint an EMA, but just very simplistically, the members passing a special resolution in terms of Reg 28, and or approaching the UMBIT with 25% of owners for the UMBIT then to do an appointment. I'm just going to quickly run through here. You'll see on the left-hand side, I've just decided to do a matrix of information of our portfolio. I've just got some, I've just referred to the scheme health with, some financial, legislative, and sort of some compliance issues. And right on the top block, I've given, just to give some context to the, effectively the businesses that we're looking after, just the magnitude of the asset value, so that, people can really appreciate, what we're actually dealing with. And I think that's something that people very often, don't take cognizance of. We've got people stepping forward, accepting the responsibility of running what is essentially a business. And if I have a look at the first one, the EMA one, we're looking at effectively 150 million rand risk, 148 million rand risk. Mike, you're the broker there, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. This was recently valued, and that's the amount. Very often the replacement cost is less than the actual market value. And I'm sure Mike can explain to anyone the difference between market value and replacement cost. But again, 150 million rand risk that we're talking about, the combined annual levies, and then I'm putting the admin and the reserve levy together, is in the region of 2.4 million. So this is a proper business. This is proper serious money that we've been entrusted to look after. And I've been given our EMA fee, the inclusive amount, managing agent fee, and just the number of units. And this is the same thing that's repeated across the full portfolio. And just to run through here, the green sort of indicates that, we, in the instance of solvency, that the scheme was solvent. The second point here is just the investment funds were applicable, if the scheme had any investment funds. And here the scheme funds weren't ultimately invested. They're effectively sitting in a call account, earning a minimal amount of interest. And, in the case of our EMA one, all we did was fix those monies, more intelligently, matching to the scheme sort of requirements over the medium to long term. And through that process, we achieved then in excess of 60,000 Rand per annum of interest income. So that in itself, almost, pays our fee. Let's just run through it a little bit more, and you'll see that by the time we get to the end, and this excludes the intangible value add. In terms of value to the units, by having it run properly, getting the maintenance done correctly, and addressing the issues that need to be addressed. The arrears collection management here, there actually are no arrears, so I can't say that it's been done well or badly. It's just it's a capitalized good scheme in Sandton. I was actually Hyde Park, and yeah, so nothing there to go on about. Just in terms of the legislative, the scheme is compliant with SARS submissions up to date. Public officer has been appointed. The Poppy and Pie manual weren't in place and updated, and I actually got Marina to put these in place for us. CSOS was up to date. And here we had an issue with, on the HR side, just in terms of the staff contracts And, while PAYE, UIF and workers' compensation were being paid, there was a direction in terms of the last AGM where the trustees were directed to look at a provident fund of sorts for the staff members. This wasn't put in place, so it's one of the things that we, assuming the role and the responsibilities of the trustees, it was our direction that we needed to fulfill, so we got that put into place. So hence the grey, it was kind of there, but not 100%. Onto the insurance, and again, Mike, you were sort of directly involved in this. The scheme, there wasn't a valuation in terms of Reg 23 once every 3 years. So that was outdated. We got an updated valuation thanks to AddSure, who did that as a value add in terms of their service, for us only to ascertain that the scheme was in excess of 30% overinsured. So, I mean, that again, that's an additional 20,000 Rand per annum premium. We have fully paid our fee in terms of our EMA sort of offering between the investment of the funds and remedying the insurance. And then something that I haven't put in here is that the previous brokers were a little bit naughty. It was an annual policy, so the funds were paid once off and upfront. I don't feel there's a huge amount of benefits. Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of paying annually upfront. There used to be, but there's less so now. And just so from a cash flow perspective, it makes sense just to pay monthly. But what the previous brokers had done is they slipped in a little 15,000 Rand broker fee. And, as we know, the legislation is quite clear that, the fees are legislated, they need to be agreed, they need to be disclosed. And so I took that up with the broker, and the monies were immediately refunded. Another 15 grand back to the scheme. Fair value for fair service. So, here the broker was getting commission, trying to push the boundaries, is just not on. So that was an additional saving, which actually hasn't been highlighted here. Just to go to compliance, here we had a number of de facto EUAs. Gardens were effectively being used as exclusive use. And one of the first things that we encountered was the whole sort of grey area in terms of who's responsible for the maintenance. The final straw was when one of the owners approached us with a cracked swimming pool and, implied that the body corporate should see to the repairs because, technically it's common property. So what we did is we updated the rules. We got them sort of 100% tailored, and we created the EUAs through the rules, which was all done, sort of correctly and, in line with some of the webinars that have been held sort of fairly recently. Just this scheme, our appointment came about that the owners, or the previous board, they're elderly, they're not young, and they were just hurtful. There was a bit of a toxic element within the scheme, who I think were a bit frustrated that things weren't being done sort of, quick enough, and as they would wish. And, so the board of trustees sort of oversaw our appointments as the EMA, and, we can make the hard decisions, and, we kind of drive the process, we advise, and, we do things completely objectively. That's something I can't overemphasize, the objectivity that an EMA brings. We're not there to take sides. We're not there to, dictate to our neighbors or, get involved in sort of petty politics. We come and we know the legislation says, we're directed by that to ask for not allowing a short-term let, which was contrary to the rules. And, for me, it's quite simple. It's not my neighbor that I've got a relationship that I've got to see every day. It was, those are your rules. I'm merely sort of, enforcing what your rules say. And so far as you don't like those, these are your options. And funny enough, that very rule was debated at the SGM to approve the rules. And it was ratified, and the members agreed that no short-term lets less than, I think it was 6 months are allowed. Very simple. I just enforce what's there. I know the process in terms of changing them. And, then, that's how it goes. Another thing to, just sort of overemphasize, or to not, to emphasize, is that there's often this perception, which I suppose could be the case, but, I suppose I can certainly speak with the position of authority from ourselves, but, but I think it is important to know when you appoint an EMA, we don't live on site, and I think that's one thing that you potentially could lose by appointing an EMA, and that's, not having that on-site sort of like presence, living there. You know, even though we're there weekly, I mean, I was there today, even I'm going on Wednesday. But, you know, we engage with the previous board. You know, in this instance, the previous board is very passionate about gardens. You know, so I do a tour of the gardens once a month with my cup of tea. I look at the succulents, I see how they're going. And, you know, we have a very close connection with them. So we never, you know, we never dictatorial. We never come in and say it's our way and, you know, that's what it is. And I think that's critically important. You know, people are interested. It's their properties. I think it's only right that they have a say in terms of what happens. And, you know, we are very dependent on that. And, you know, we appreciate that linkage to, you know, that physical link in terms of what's on the ground, the feel of the scheme, the complex, the owners. And, you know, that's important to us. And it's something that, you know, we kind of embrace. So, you know, so from that perspective, it's not that you kind of hand over, you know, never to be involved again. So, yeah, so that's the first one. And we're well into the second year there. And I think we've done fantastically well. And I think, you know, everyone's happy. And, you know, and it runs well as the business that it should be. The managing agents are happy. They know after our meetings, except for the SGMs and the AGMs, that our budgets, you know, we have a monthly management sort of meet. And, you know, those are 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, not Thursday, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, when we talk about everything except for what needs to be talked about. You know, we literally 30 minutes. We know what the managing agent needs to do. We know what our job is. And, you know, it's quick to the point. And, you know, that's the way it works. The second scheme, here again, it's a 91 million rand risk, just to give some sort of context. 2.5 million rand, call it, you know, combined annual levies. Again, it's a proper business. We're not talking small change here. It's proper. Our EMA fee there is 6325. The managing agent fee is 8670, and it's 88 units. This is funny enough, Shirley Bailey's building. I'm sure she wouldn't mind me just sort of sharing that just to give some sort of context. But again, let's have a look. See, solvent, yes, it is solvent. But again, on the investment funds, you know, again, I feel for managing agents. You know, generally they pay the least and expected to do the most. We expect them to be, you know, not only sort of, you know, our accountants, our attorneys, our paralegals, our maintenance experts, you know, our shrinks, you know, they've got to do everything. You know, and here again, you know, their investment monies, you know, we can't expect them as well to be, you know, well, we do expect them to be financial, you know, sort of gurus, but, you know, very often they don't, not maliciously so. It's just that it's an oversight. But, you know, by remedying this in this instance here, we've managed to, you know, earn this scheme 50,000 rand per annum in additional interest revenue. So for the first two schemes, you know, we've added over 100,000 rand to the two buildings that we look after, which I think is fantastic. In terms of the rear collection here, I've given it an amber because there were a number of legal files that were very slow. The appointed attorneys were not doing what should have been done timeously. They're grossly overcharging as far as we're concerned. Bearing in mind, we have a very strong sort of legal capability of no less than 4 attorneys on the payroll. And again, it's not a question about, you know, getting the lowest price. It's a question about paying the right price. And I think, you know, that's very important. It's, you know, I'm all about, you know, people must, you know, it's honest job for honest value. You know, we've moved those files. We've now got some traction. And I think the arrears are probably not even 20% of what they were when we were appointed, which, you know, I think is great. Just in terms of the legislative SARS compliant years, public officer was appointed, correct. Copy and Pyre, no, they weren't in place. They were draft copies, but no one had been appointed the information officer, and they hadn't been signed off. So we got that sort of sorted out. And I think it's, again, you know, trustees very often are nervous to sign stuff, you know, on behalf, you know, of a scheme or, you know, make those decisions because they're scared, and sometimes, you know, sort of understandably so. And that again is a, you know, a big benefits of having an impartial sort of, you know, professional party like ourselves come in. We know what has to happen. We know the risks, and, you know, we're quite happy with it because it's got to be done. And, you know, just on that point, and not to digress, you know, that just the audience must also appreciate that trustees are indemnified in terms of the legislation. You know, operating as an EMA, there is no indemnification. So we're fully liable for our actions. And, you know, for that, we have our professional indemnity sort of cover, which, you know, we keep in check just in case we do make a mistake. And, you know, that's very important. You know, we stand by the decisions that we make. CSOS up to date. The staff employment compliance. Here, the building manager, he had a contract that was very, you know, very wishy-washy, you know, and clearly not enforceable. So we got that sorted out. And, by the same token, he's operating as a company. And so we insisted that he put sort of, PI cover in place, given that he's managing staff. And interestingly here, occupational health and safety, which seems to be a big issue amongst all schemes. And very often I get people coming back to me to say, but aren't we making a big issue of it? It's not relevant to what is corporate. The fact of the matter, it is relevant, and it's not a problem until it does become a problem. And I think it's when it does become a problem that, that's when, and sorry, just to jump back to my first EMA one, there are 5 staff on site, and they clean gutters up to 2.5 stories high. So, we had to get in the occupational health and safety people. We had to do training at height. We had to put in harnesses. There's a fair bit that we had to do. And yes, it's not a problem until someone falls and it does become a problem. And then those reserves that we invested so nicely for them, all of a sudden aren't looking too rosy because there's a claim. And quite frankly, in my opinion, the trustees wouldn't get behind the indemnification afforded in terms of the Act, because that is grossly negligent, in my opinion. Again, here in EMA 2, occupational health and safety was, there's no consideration given to it. There again, 3-4 staff members, also cleaning gutters, ladders, that type of thing. We went through the same process. It's yes, it is a bit of a pain, but, sadly, we don't get to choose what legislation we do and don't sort of comply with. And, at the end of the day, I know I'm repeating myself, but, it's not a problem until it does become a problem. And, that's what you don't want. Just in terms of compliance, this scheme had done a fair bit of work in terms of, regularizing the exclusive use areas and, creating them through the rules. They weren't de facto, well, I suppose, they definitely were de facto. They'd done a fair bit of work, but they weren't over the line. So, we picked it up. We did, the rules were in a bit of a loose format. I think in maybe version 2, we had to take it up to about version 20 to get fully completed. And, and the rule, Aubrey did the layouts for us and, created all of that. And we've got the SGM later this month when everything will be sort of sorted out. So here, very clearly, our appointment is self-funding again. And, I think we've added value in terms of addressing some of the gaps that sort of arose. Our next EMA 3 is quite an interesting one. This is just around the corner from Silver Lakes in Victoria. A very nice scheme in a very sort of decent area. And just again, to give some context, a 205 million rand risk. So, we're talking big numbers here. It's not 20 rand, we're talking, in excess of 200 million. And again, just trusting that there are some very good boards of trustees and some very competent people, but I think the point is that these are proper businesses with proper asset values that they deserve they deserve a meeting at 9 in the morning, not 7 o'clock at night. They should be top of mind with a dedicated focus. Combined annual levies of 2.7 million rand. I mean, it's big money. It's not small money. This building is in an accumulated deficit. It's technically sort of bankrupt. Big sort of financial issues. Previous boards of trustees, just failed in their obligations. There was a new board that actually got us in. They sort of called the SGM AGM. They put in a special levy, albeit over 2 years, to address some of the issues. The one was an 900,000. The city of Tshwane electricity account, and they're being sued by their security for 300,000 rand with no defence. So they raised a special levy for that over 2 years. Unfortunately, it wasn't cash in the bank sort of up front, but we've managed to navigate that by discounting that sort of special levy to get funds into place to keep the lights on, and second of all, to just stave off the legal action, which quite frankly was unnecessary and not defensible at all. The arrears there was a problem. There's a large trust of multiple units that owes a fair bit of money. And again, just the wrong attorneys appointed. Nothing wrong with the attorneys, honest people, but it's about horses for courses. Here we need sort of collection specialists, in the sectional title space. And, that's our strong points. Not that we do the work, but we know who to give it to, and we know what they're meant to be doing in the time period. So we've made good progress there. We've already settled one of the matters and, making good sort of traction on the others. 10-year plan, non-existent. There are some major issues there. in terms of the balconies, which are all EUAs. There's no EUA contribution being raised. There's no money, and multiple leaks and failures amongst the building. So we're in the process of packaging that and sort of getting that sort of sorted out at the moment. SARS, definitely not SARS compliant, no submission, no public officer, no POPI PIA, no CSOS, and the staff contract not in place. There was a building manager, estate manager who walked off site. He was also suing the body corporate, or threatened to sue, but he was legitimately owed, I think it was 30,000 Rand. So we needed to see to that as well. So it's just all these issues. And I think it's not necessarily that, people wake up intentionally wanting to mismanage, but it's just that, volunteers, most people have got day jobs. They work 8 to 5, they've got children and families after hours. And, these are full-time jobs that demand a dedicated and sort of focused attention. And I think, again, not just to re-emphasize, that's the benefits of appointing an EMA is a person party with necessary and requisite sort of expertise. They can actually do this on a full-time basis. And again, where an EMA sort of operates with no indemnification in terms of the act. We get the volunteers coming in and we then afford them indemnification in the event that they mismanage, which is just, almost, I understand why it's there, but it's kind of a bit silly in my mind. Okay, the insurance was all correct here. We moved that across to AddSure. The previous brokers just weren't sort of too interested. Again, occupational health and safety, we need to get sorted out. It's a work in progress. Conduct rules, they're not tailored. They are conduct rules, but they're just the prescribed rules. So I don't know about de facto EOs and legal extensions. We're just fighting fires to try and keep the lights on. Yeah, interestingly, I've said that we are self-financing, and the reason why I say we're self-financing is this is a body corporate within a greater estate with fantastic sort of security. It's the only estate or body corporate within the greater HOA that isn't fully fenced off. And as a result, they're spending about 50,000 Rand a month on security. So, we've met with the directors of the greater HOA, and, we're surprised to have learned that, they've already recommended to previous boards of trustees that they shouldn't close the estate. And so, save on the monthly security cost. We've now implemented that. We put in finance, I mentioned we discounted the special levy that's been put into place. And, through that, we've just, we've discounted it sort of sufficiently that it allows, sufficient scope to see to that closing off, which will then realize a 600,000 Rand plus, annual saving. So, that's happening. We've done the SGMs, we've got the necessary approvals, and the work starts this week, funny enough. So, we're quite excited about that, and we're getting some sort of, good traction there. AGM, yes, that's not held within. So it's another sort of like compliance issue. So, so that's quite an interesting one. Then on to EMA 4. This is a bit of a new one. This is our first Cape Town building. Our appointment came about by a dysfunctional sort of set of trustees. A lot of infighting and sort of disagreements for a whole multitude of reasons. Which kind of hinders their ability to make decisions to the greater good of the actual scheme. And that's how we came about being appointed. Not a massive job in terms of remedying it. But the place is in a little bit of a mess at the moment. We'll just sort of run through it. But, at least we're able to make, decisions now and get stuff done. Everyone's kind of, just sort of stalling because, the trustees hated each other. So if one bunch said yes, the other said no, just as a matter of course, and sort of vice versa, to the collective detriment of all the owners, which is sort of certainly counterproductive. I've given an amber in terms of the financials. It's too soon to say whether we are solvent. I'm safe to say there's about 130,000 Rand in the bank at the moment. So I can't quite tell. We're working on the budget, which to a water leak going back 2 weeks now. 2 weeks for the leak detectors. And they confirmed there was a leak, and plumbing repairs are starting this week, this coming Wednesday. We've got NARBA involved. They came through. I just said I had quotes from 3 different plumbing companies, ranging from 35,000 rand, right up to 250,000 rand to correct it, which, to me just didn't make sense. I needed to be guided by someone I could trust. And the recommendation that's come back is a cost in the region of 55,000 rand, for the correct one. So again, if I had been right, applied the due care and diligence, we could easily have gone with the 150 to suggested to me by one of the previous. That's important takeouts again, is that we trust. We don't necessarily know, and I think one does need to be guarded, bearing the right decisions in their best interests. Here, I know 10-year plan. The arrears, there actually are no arrears, so it's moot point. SARS. This is a large sort of managing agent in the Cape that's managing here. I don't think solely their functional board of trustees difficult to push the proverbial in many instances. Tax returns not done since 2050. No public officer appointed, no poppy pie, no CSOS. No staff contract with employees, no UIF, no PIY. The insurance should. So, there we've saved the scheme about 17,000 US per annum. It doesn't quite cover our fee, but, it's certainly a step in the right direction. I'll argue in this instance that the intangible, value add that we kind of, clawing back, I think, more than covers, our fairly sort of menial fee here. Again, occupational health and safety, not addressed, not a concern. We'll get there in due course. I think the more pressing issues at the moment. Conduct rules, de facto EUAs and legal extensions. It's only just become to my attention now that some common property has been illegally closed on the one section where the leak was. So obviously we're going to need to go through that process to get that sorted out now as well. There's an illegal deck that's been on the one side as well, and that we'll need to deal with in due course. So again, sort of a whole shopping list of issues here. Quite new still, so we're busy working through that. And then just sort of my last one here is possibly our biggest charge, just that it's requiring a lot of work. Here there is no managing agent fee. I've gone contrary to what my best advices are, and that's in terms of segregating the MA and the EMA function. It remains my opinion that those should be performed by two different parties. But in this instance here, the previous managing agent was a small managing agent, literally being paid less than 1,000 rand. And, the turnaround times were just sort of not conducive to the task at hand. And, we just made a call. We'll do it. We've got the capability. I think we're half honest. And quite frankly, there's nothing to steal. So I thought it was just easier for us to do. We can't wait a week or 2 weeks to get levy rolls and know what's going on. So we've assumed full responsibility. And, we'll fix it and then we'll pass on to a managing agent partner. Funny enough, this building was referred through to me by Angle, who just didn't have the capacity to deal with it. And, so we're going through it. But yeah, the hijackings of a number of member units. The caretakers unit has been hijacked. The eviction is actually set tomorrow. It was meant to have been 2 weeks ago, but SAPS are not playing ball. We've got legal connections galore. So it's just a sea of red. There's very little compliance here. There is no money, but we're dealing with. There's a group of very concerned owners, very nice owners who've got sort of financial means, and we've kind of walking them through the different sort of options available to them. But what looks to happen is that we're going to raise a special levy. We've done a proper cash flow for them so that we know what to expect. There's 700,000 rand that's owing to COJ. We need to fix a DB board, which is a risk at the moment. That's another 50, 60 grand. We've got legal fees in terms of the evictions that are going on. So I've ignored whatever the budget is because there's no budgets. So we just done a cash flow for the guys who said, right, this is what it looks like. This is what we need you guys to do. And, you guys are going to need to, put money in or effectively write your investment off. But there's very little we can do without you guys' support. So I think we've managed to get the paying owners, get their support. And I think they appreciate the candidness, of what we've done. We've showed them what it is. There's no BS. It is what it is. We've had about 3 or 4 discussions with them. I've never just raised a special levy without getting their inputs and getting their buy-in in terms of what the plan is. But I think we will manage to claw this back. Part of that proposal is actually securing it. We need to put in proper access control, biometrics. But before we do that, we need to secure the perimeter. It also necessitates blocking up some street access on common property, which I just shouldn't say, but I'm just going to do it. We need to regain control here. So yeah, that's the story. So they're all very different, but I think the value that I think we really do, and not necessarily only us, but I think that an EMA can provide in sort of many instances is just the kind of a know-how. Nothing that we do is difficult. It's just having the time, the capacity, and the time and the capacity to actually focus almost exclusively on the problems as opposed to doing it kind of part-time. And your poor managing agents, they're managing a number of buildings. They can't press the proverbial, which is a big failing, but obviously, trustees do need to, push the button. You can't have the tail wagging the dog, but, and very often if you've got dysfunctional boards of trustees or disinterested or, just a lack of time and effort, it's kind of filters through, to the detriment and the prejudice of the collective. So, so I think the takeout is 60% of instances in our little portfolio. Yes, it's small, but, we're more than self-funding. And, the 2 that we aren't, it's too early to tell. But again, I would argue that the intangible sort of value add or just arresting further erosion of value, more than justifies our rather kind of menial fees, that we charge. So, yeah, Mike, I think that's about it. I thought it was quite a nice way to kind of portray it. This is live, this is actual, these numbers aren't cooked. If anyone wants to interrogate them further, I'm more than happy to with the necessary permissions. But yeah, I think it gives a nice sort of insight in terms of what we do and kind of the value that we can, well, not only exclusively us, but the EMA can add.
Absolutely, Michael. On Saturday when you were presenting this to everybody, I wish I could find a way of making the screen nice and big so that everybody could see it. I think this has been perfect. I think for you to go over it again so that people can really see what you've been doing and achieving here. If I can just add some comments, Michael, I didn't do so on Saturday because we were tight on time on Saturday too, was that, from my experience, I'm absolutely amazed what you're achieving. When you started doing the EMAs and I started working with you in the beginning, I'm just reiterating how amazing, how I've actually seen the turnaround from a physical point of view. I've been going to site a few times on some of these risks, and no, it's amazing what happens. And I see it being a trend going forward. I see this as the solution for many more bodies corporate, not just bodies corporate in trouble, just bodies corporate that want to get run properly. And then my second point is that I think you're conservative to be using the insurance sum insured, the replacement value of 148 million or whatever, 204 million, etc. That is conservative because as we know, people's investments are more around the value of the market value. And getting a building painted, just getting the building painted, the market value can jump. Just having control of and having it looking good, you can actually walk in and you can say, I've got a feeling I want to buy here. I think that adds tremendous value as well, Michael. So yes, well done. And I know a lot of people wanted to see these slides more closely, and hence we're putting this together. Okay. Michael, anything more to add?
No, that's
it. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed the video clip.